All right, hi everyone. So, I need to take a minute or two to talk through the E4 project, which I think I did in lesson at some point. So, I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. And then a quick introduction to our next task, which is our design document, task 2 in this project. Okay, so on the website, which we've not been using for a while, you will find a unit spec for the 3 units that comprise the E4 project. Because remember, this project um, combines 3 units, so we're kind of killing 3 birds with 1 stone. That's the idea. We're ticking lots of boxes across all 3 units by doing, um, essentially less tasks. There are still a substantial number of tasks. This is all the tasks down the right-hand side. But we don't have to do, for example, 3 sets of mood boards and 3 sets of legal and ethical and 3 sets of various other elements of the task. Okay, so it's 3D modeling, digital animation, audiovisual promo project. Hence the ident. Okay, hence the E4 ident. Okay, it has to be for it's a media product. Okay, it's not an art animation, so it needs to be related to the media in some way. So we are relating it to the television channel E4, and it has to be an audio-visual promo. So we could have done a trailer for your video game, or we could have done a music video or something. But we've decided that we would do this ident. An ident being an advert for a television channel that comes on in between shows and kind of reinforces the brand identity for that TV channel. Okay, it's kind of short for brand identity, I suppose. Anyway, we have a unit guide here. So very quickly, just go through the brief. So in the unit guide, you will have the brief and the requirements. So a reminder there of the 3 units. And then we have a bit of an overview of E4, youth-orientated digital television channel aimed at 16 to 34-year-olds. And then a kind of introduction to the brief. You've been challenged to create a fully animated 30-second ident for delivery on TV and online. That's quite crucial, actually. For E4, that's selling the quirkiness and the fun of the brand, while also celebrating diversity or in some way celebrating core British values. So this ties into something that's been part of our curriculum for a little while at Barton Peveril. A little brief overview of what the ident must include, and then there's some more specific requirements on slide 5. So we're recommending, I'm heartily recommending a clear genre pastiche or a parody, or just using a genre, picking a genre and using the conventions of that genre. It will make it easier to answer and just answer questions and justify choices and so on if you're working within an established genre. It needs to have an original 3D character with clear personality traits, hence all the idea generation that we've done and thinking about the combination or the link between the character's form and its personality. It needs to have static props, so that's all your assets. And it needs to have some kind of vaguely interactive prop. There needs to be some way the character can kind of engage or interact with an object. And it could be really loosely, such as walking through a puddle, or it could be very literally picking up a pen or playing with headphones. There needs to be some kind of interactive prop. And then obviously we need a setting for this action. So you need to, as well as create a 3D character, a 3D environment also. Just briefly, style preferences. I want you to look into the current trends in animation. So there is a sort of movement away from that sort of Pixar aesthetic from the last couple of years. That's becoming kind of bland, and there is a more of a lean. Studios are sort of leaning more towards low poly or sort of handmade looking stuff, handcrafted retro. There's been in the last little while there's been a kind of resurgence of, especially in music videos, animated and dynamic typography, that kind of thing. But anyway, we'll let you look into this sort of stuff yourself. what are the trends in animation in 2020. Specific requirements then: 30-second running time, using the codes and conventions of a particular genre, hence choose a genre. The clear personality traits. You need to use 3D modeling, okay, because we're combining a 3D modeling unit with an AV promo unit. We need to make an AV promo with the use of 3D modeling, okay, so we can't do a stop motion or 2D animation. There does need to be photographic or texture painting happening. There needs to be clear use of lighting and shadow. Setting, static and interactive props, use of animations, so keyframes, shape keys, using the Blender dope sheet or the non-linear action editor. So we'll talk about those things down the road a bit. It needs to be optimized for the web, so it will be launched online, at least according to the brief, but this is actually part of the spec, is that it is to be made for the web. We need to do a bit of testing. And then we do have to do some post-production. So along with the pre-production, which is this task, so all your character designs and storyboarding and all that, pre-production stuff, along with the production of actually animating it, we have post-production. So you do need to do a little bit of transitions, visual effects, adding sound, soundtracks, and using a voiceover. Okay, now clearly the deadlines and so on are kind of up in the air at the moment, although it is the sort of thing you need to discuss in the first couple of slides of task 2. So we'll talk about that more when you get some specific instruction on that. But we're going to run with this deadline of the 11th of January. So you get a week kind of after, or the week after you come back after Christmas, and then the product launching on the 15th of February. Okay, a bit of information here on the target audience. You'll be doing your own research on this yourselves, but typically E4 does target younger audience, slightly more female than male. Under 18, 63% versus the sort of 55 and up, which makes up 0% of their demographic. But I'll be wanting you to do a bit of your own research into what the target audience is. And then in this document, there's a brief explanation of each of the tasks. You've done task 1A, 1B, and 1C, or at least we have covered all the content for these tasks, and we are now moving on to task 2. So the rest of the tasks are in here, should you wish to. It's pretty straightforward, though. We do those 3 written tasks. We do this design document where you're planning the character environment and your animation. We've got a bit of legal and ethical stuff to do, a risk assessment, a recce, looking at the regulatory bodies. We then have to produce a 3D character, and we submit that as an idle animation. We have to do an environment or setting. We submit that as a fly-through animation. We have props to make, and then you do have to kind of record your progress as much as possible as well, so we can make a production document at the end which explains how you've done everything. Although usually students kind of reverse engineer their work to explain how it was created, because it's a bit of a chore to be continually remembering to screenshot as you go. Task 5 is the actual ident itself, the 30-second ident. We do have 3 versions of that. So an offline edit with no sound, a draft with sound and effects, and then a final with that we render after feedback. So you do an offline edit with no sound or post-production. You then add your sound in post-production and render that out. We take some feedback and we do a final round of changes based on the feedback and a final render. So you'll be submitting 3 versions of your final animation. That's quite key to remember, because rendering is no easy task. And then the last task is a production document where, as I say, you go through and you give evidence of how you've made everything. Pretty much everything up till that last task is merit and pass stuff. When it comes to the practical things, it's actually in this last task that you do distinction work, where you have to justify choices, reasons why you've chosen particular techniques, etc. Okay. Obviously, you had a bit of distinction work in task C when you had to compare and contrast the meaning of your AV promos, and a bit of distinction stuff in task B where you had to compare your animations across, to compare international animations. There was no distinction work in task 1A. That was all pass. Okay, so that's the E4 project. Just a reminder, we've kind of been through it already. On the website, we have some example animations you can have a look at. Not millions. We have some example characters which are embedded in this set of slides, which you may be familiar with already. We used it on the intro day. So if you ignore all the intro day instructions, at the end of this, you'll see some more character models, little turnarounds, turntables of some of these models that students have prepared. We have got some various resources, things that I will sort of point you towards as we continue with this project. There is a link to the Blender Fundamentals tutorials, so that's all the basic tutorials from Blender themselves. I've been making some videos for 2.8, which have been going on Classroom and so on, so I've just thought I'd put them all together in one place, and I'll start adding to this page as I make more. There are some of the older ones that I made for the old spec and using 2.79, which need to be updated, although some of these are still relevant, like this sort of time lapse on how I would recommend you make a human if you are interested in making a human. This takes you through how I made a couple of my characters. This is the sort of way I would recommend you make a human if you are looking into it. You kind of get something a little bit like this, or a little bit like this zombie that's on the thumbnail there. An introduction to texture painting, making turntables, UV animation, and so on. Most of these I'll have to update. What else have we got on there? Yeah, links to other texturing videos that I've made, that kind of thing. Most of the best ones I've kind of embedded in this web page here, and like I said, I'll be making updates anyway. Okay, so I'd like you to spend a bit of time just having a look through some of the resources, watching some of the animations, and then you'll need to come back, and I have got a video that goes through task 2, your next actual task, bit of an overview, and then a third video with some actual instructional material on how to begin the task. Okay.